Oh, brilliant. Thanks very much, Audrey. It's a bit disconcerting looking out to this audience, particularly over the nameplates, because you're definitely not Councillor Anne Simpson. But I'd like to get a quick feel for audience first, and then I can kind of pitch the discussion accordingly. So can I just get a quick indication of who are councillors? Come on, fess up, you folk. Yep, great. Who are council officers? And there's a sprinkling of some others as well. So you've got a pretty broad brush across the local authority, and I'll come to the reason for asking that in just a moment in terms of the responsibilities which the local authority has in relation to towns and in relation to the role of towns in the local economy. But also just to get a feel for where you're at, quite often test in these turbulent economic times, just test the audience according to 3 different trigger words. So maybe if you could just close your eyes and respond in any way you desire, whether you want to put your hand up or shout out or make a face or whatever it might be, to the following 3 words. Brexit. Yeah, thank you. I think that camera's been turned off. Indie Ref 2. Quite quiet. And Trump. Yeah, I'll sort of get that one. Particularly here in Aberdeenshire. And I mention that one specifically because of the economic impact projected for that particular intervention. And it's that word intervention which is at the heart of everything which the local authority does in terms of towns. And I'll come to some of the interventions which you can make and how the Town Centre First principle will enable you to make, hopefully, strong and stable interventions there, strong interventions of the right nature, which are seen for the long term and not for the short term, because the life cycle of the local authority, we've just been through an election, the life cycle of the local authority inevitably puts pressure on you to take short-term decisions. And what you really need is a look at the longer term and the ability to look at the long term and to make decisions across a period. Putting in capital investment, for example, completely reshaping a public service, and these are long-term decisions and they impact the life of your towns, and you can make them in a way which is going to be positive, and the Town Centre First principle will hopefully allow you to do that. So just a quick first look at the big economic picture. Where are we in Scotland's economy? What are the key drivers? What are the key challenges? And where do towns and the relationship of towns to cities fit within that? So broadly speaking, on the capital side of the Scottish balance sheet, you've got the city-region deals, which Jim mentioned earlier, coming through the system. And if you add up all of the commitments which UK government and Scottish government have made through the city deal mechanism, through the city deals, growth deals, GAMS, TIFs, some of the other capital expenditure programmes that they've put together, you've got, and this might come as a bit of a surprise, you've got around 20-25 billion of expenditure committed over the next 10 years. Aberdeenshire obviously wants to get a good share of that, your proper share of that. On the revenue side, we had the publication of the Enterprise and Skills Review, which I'm on yesterday. And the Enterprise and Skills Review, looking at the Enterprise and Skills agencies, so the Funding Council, Scottish Enterprise, SDI, SDS, and HIE together, and then moving on to some of the other agencies which have an impact on the revenue side of the economy, around about 29 billion over 10 years as well on the revenue side. So huge, historic sums of money being made available in a different way. And for local authorities, then that shift from being principally a monopoly provider of public service, a whole range of different public services and the impact that they have on towns, to a driver for economic growth. And being able to understand, appreciate, to shape your economy by understanding and appreciating the role that your towns play in your economy is obviously going to be a key aspect. And one of those key aspects, particularly here for the Shire and for City, we're actually in the City, aren't we, at the moment, and particularly here, the relationship between your towns and the City, and how and how that plays out. Jim made mention of previous work patterns, for example. How does the local labour supply market work? How does the housing market work? How does education catchments work? How do all of these things work in relation to the city region, and what role do your towns play in that? And in Scotland, although we've had a real focus on the role of cities and the establishment of the Scottish Cities Alliance, and now a real focus on towns, and the Town Centre First principle and the work which was done through the Malcolm Fraser review, which Audrey mentioned, then we haven't really had a discussion about how those two things link together and what those relationships are. And it's so important, particularly for a place like the Shire, to have, because you're a place of towns, and therefore a microcosm of Scotland. Scotland's a nation of towns, not a nation of cities. We have a network of 7 cities which kind of sit within a much broader network of hundreds of towns. And because Aberdeenshire is geographically made up in the way that it is, your towns are so important. And Jim made reference to that connection between people and place. By and large, people don't say they're from Aberdeenshire or from East Dunbartonshire or from East Lothian. They'll say they're from Banff or from Mulgai or from Haddington. And so they have their first bit of identity, if you like, in the place where they live, in some cases where they work, and in many cases where they play as well. And that interconnectivity between those different roles which towns play is a key to going forward. We've traditionally looked at our towns as being dominated by retail, the retail of the high street, if you like. And what the Towns Review did, and certainly the work which we did in the run-up to the Towns Review, I travelled the length and breadth of the country looking at the way that towns functioned across Scotland about 10 years ago in preparation for that review. And what we found were those 3 interlinking, interlocking aspects of towns. Firstly, economic interactions are at the heart of the town's experience. People go to transact economic business, and that's what draws them into a town centre. But they're also drawn into a town centre, and they stay in a town centre because there are cultural activities, and they get the opportunity for social interaction as well. So even in this digital world of ours, and with all the pressure about shifting to a low carbon economy, and lessening the role of private transport, for example, or at least petrol-driven private transport, then there are those 3 key drivers in every town's economy. And if we understand how they interplay with each other, and then how you can use the Town Centre First principle to safeguard them, to nurture them, to enable them to interact with each other, and to use the role of the local authority with all of the different functions which you have. You're the roads authority, you're the education authority, you're the transport authority. You have all these different statutory responsibilities, but you're now being asked, through the Enterprise and Skills Review and through what will come as a follow-on from it, to take a much more principal role in terms of the whole economy. And being able to do that, and do that agilely, and recognise the diversity of your towns, and the value of that diversity is going to be a key aspect. So the Town Centre First principle is it's a flexible framework. It's an opportunity to compare and contrast. It gives you the chance to look at the good, the bad and the ugly in every town, to compare that with others, to learn lessons from others, and to ensure that all of the work of the local authority is driven through that particular prism, through that policy prism, and to try and use the whole of the asset, whether it's the capital asset or the revenue asset, in a way which supports economic growth across the piece. And so that strength of diversity is probably the final point that I'll make. Scotland's cities, when they came together, the 7, so initially the 6 cities and then the 7 when Perth was regranted its status. One of the key aspects of the cities coming together, which wasn't really designed into the bureaucracy of putting the Cities Alliance together, was that recognition of the diverse nature of the 7 cities. They suddenly realised that they were all different from each other and they weren't big and small versions of the same thing. They all have a different role to play in Scotland's economy. They all respect the roles which the other 6 cities play. And they are now working together in a way which so they can collaborate to compete, is the phrase they use. Your towns are similar in the microcosm of your regional economy. So your towns play essentially different roles. Some of them will play similar roles to each other, but each of them are specific to their place, to the people that live there. And using the town centre first principle gives people a common language to discuss these matters with. It gives the basis of a really strong narrative for economic growth, and it provides you with a leading edge opportunity. And Aberdeenshire has always been seen around Scotland as leading the way in terms of the way you do towns and towns development. You might not recognise that, you might not know that, you might think about your own town and think, well actually, we've got some challenges. But outside Aberdeenshire, when people look in, they see innovation, and they see you guys tackling productivity, and they see the internationalisation being challenged as well. Those 3 big structural challenges for Scotland's economy being tackled in Aberdeenshire's towns. Town Centre First Principle gives you an overarching framework in order to tackle those things at the local level, but to recognise that they play at the regional level and they have a role to play in terms of the national level as well. So I'm super excited by Aberdeenshire moving on again to the next phase of your development of towns and towns policy and how you go about that, because there's so much for others to learn from you. There's still some lessons to learn from outside Aberdeenshire, and I would certainly encourage you to do that. But congratulations for getting to this stage, for moving the agenda on for the country as a whole, and particularly within the North East economy, with all the current challenges which it faces, taking a long-term look at how you solve some of the short-term issues. And Town Centre First Principle is one of the pillars, one of the planks of how you're going to be able to do that.